Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. Chapter 1. Veiled Eyes. The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Millennium Hotel ballroom cast a golden glow over the charity gala, illuminating champagne flutes and diamond necklaces worth more than most people's lifetime earnings. Among the servers in crisp black uniforms, Zara Whitfield moved with practiced ease, her ebony skin gleaming under the warm lights, hazel eyes deliberately downcast as she offered canapés to guests who barely acknowledged her existence. None of the elite attendees recognized her as the daughter of Cornelius Whitfield, the enigmatic tech mogul whose quantum computing revolution had made him billions overnight. The same men who had once rejected her for being too dark now salivated over magazine photos of the mysterious Luna Sterling, her public alter ego, carefully disguised with platinum wigs and colored contacts in the few public appearances she made. After a particularly cruel rejection from a potential suitor who called her too dark to be seen with publicly, Zara had created the Luna Sterling persona, complete with platinum hair and colored contacts, as both shield and experiment a way to move through elite circles without facing the same prejudice. The transformation had been startling, even to her. In the mirror, Luna looked like a stranger, a woman who met society's narrow definition of beauty and was therefore deemed worthy of respect that Zara's natural appearance apparently didn't deserve. Her father had objected initially, concerned about what message she was sending to herself. "You're perfect as you are," he had insisted. But Cornelius Whitfield hadn't experienced the cutting remarks, the dismissive glances, or the outright rejections his daughter had weathered. Eventually, he relented, understanding that Luna offered his daughter a form of protection in a world that could be unforgivingly cruel. Despite its veneer of sophistication, Zara balanced her silver tray with practiced precision, observing conversations with quiet intensity. This server charade had begun 6 months ago after overhearing 2 potential suitors discussing how they'd overlook her complexion for the Whitfield fortune. The humiliation had crystallized years of similar experiences into a single, clarifying moment of rage. If men only valued her for money, she would see who valued her without it. She navigated between clusters of New York's elite with invisible precision. There, the tech investors her father cultivated. Beyond them, the old money families who reluctantly made space for new wealth. And near the windows, politicians who would later claim these donations bought them nothing. Zara noted details that servers were expected to overlook. Whispered affairs, business deals negotiated in corners, the casual cruelty of wealth discussing poverty over $500 per plat dinners, ostensibly raising money for homeless shelters. "Excuse me." A deep voice cut through her thoughts. "Could I trouble you for another drink?" Zara looked up into the most intense green eyes she'd ever seen. Jasper Thornton. She recognized him immediately from magazine covers featuring his revolutionary sustainable architecture that transformed city skylines worldwide. Unlike the carefully coiffed business magnates surrounding him, Jasper wore his bespoke suit with a casual confidence that suggested he'd dressed for himself rather than others. A slight ink stain on his right thumb hinted at the architect's habit of sketching ideas whenever inspiration struck. "Of course, sir," she replied, keeping her voice deliberately plain. "Jasper, please," he said, smiling in a way that made her pulse quicken unexpectedly. Small creases appeared at the corners of his eyes, evidence of genuine smiles rather than the practiced social expressions that dominated the room. "And you are?" "Zara," she answered before she could stop herself, giving her real name instead of the fake one she'd prepared. The slip surprised her. She'd been meticulous in her planning, creating an entire false identity for this experiment. "Unusual name," he remarked, actually looking at her while other guests stared through her as if she were invisible. "Beautiful, though. Like the star-filled sky." A genuine blush warmed her cheeks. "You know your astronomy." "I know beauty when I see it," he replied, his gaze unwavering in a way that made her momentarily forget her role. There was something disarming about his direct attention, not the evaluating stare she'd grown accustomed to, but something more curious and appreciative. "Are you new?" "I attend these functions regularly, but I don't recall seeing you before." His eyes maintained contact with hers rather than performing the usual sweep over her body that she'd come to expect from men. Just filling in, she lied smoothly. Saving for design school. His interest visibly deepened, brows lifting slightly. What kind of design? Urban spaces, she replied, drawing from her actual passion. Environments that serve communities rather than just looking impressive. This truth, nested within her lies, felt dangerous, a personal revelation she hadn't planned to share. We should talk more about that, Jasper said, pulling a business card from his pocket. My firm is always looking for fresh perspectives, especially from people who understand that architecture should serve humanity, not just wealthy clients. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. She'd researched him extensively, of course. His innovative approach to sustainable architecture, his controversial stance that beautiful design shouldn't be reserved for the wealthy, his refusal of several high-profile projects on ethical grounds, but articles couldn't capture the intensity with which he spoke about his principles. Across the room, Cornelius Whitfield entered with his entourage, fashionably late as always. Her father's commanding presence caused the usual ripple effect. Conversations pausing, heads turning, social climbers subtly repositioning themselves for potential introductions. Zara tensed, turning quickly away from her father, who would recognize her instantly, despite the subtle makeup changes and different hairstyle. "Everything okay?" Jasper asked, noticing her sudden discomfort with surprising perceptiveness. "Just need to refresh these trays," she managed, heart pounding against her ribs. "Enjoy your evening, Sir Jasper." The correction felt intimate, a small acknowledgement of connection she shouldn't be encouraging. As she slipped away through the service entrance, Zara felt his eyes following her. This wasn't part of her plan to feel this immediate, electric connection to someone she just met. Her careful experiment was designed to find a man who saw beyond skin color before revealing her wealth, not to actually fall for someone who made her temporarily forget her purpose. "Too dangerous," she whispered to herself, escaping through the kitchen where staff bustled, preparing desserts that cost more than their daily wages. But even as she fled, she couldn't forget those piercing green eyes that had actually seen her, not the server uniform, not just her skin, but something deeper that she'd thought carefully concealed. In the staff bathroom, she pulled out her phone, searching Jasper Thornton more thoroughly. The results confirmed what she already knew. 32 years old. Architectural prodigy. Environmentalist. Eligible bachelor from the powerful Thornton family, whose construction empire stretched back generations. New articles mentioned his recent rejection of a lucrative Dubai contract over workers' rights concerns, a principled stand that reportedly infuriated his traditionalist father, Reginald Thornton. What the search didn't show was how his voice would make her skin tingle, or how being truly seen by someone would feel after years of invisibility. These reactions weren't accounted for in her carefully calculated plan. Her phone vibrated with a message from Raven, her assistant and confidant since childhood. "Your father asking where Luna is. Coming to your section next. Damage control needed." Zara quickly applied more powder to her face, darkened her beauty mark, and adjusted her wig more securely. She'd miscalculated by taking this server position at an event her father was attending risky. But now she had met Jasper Thornton, a man rumored to refuse his family's attempts at matchmaking with eligible socialites, including, ironically, her own alter ego, Luna Sterling, who had been on the Thornton family's prospective daughter-in-law list for months, according to Raven's intelligence. "Focus," she reminded herself, examining her reflection one last time. "This isn't real. It's an experiment." The words sounded hollow, even to her own ears. But as she slipped back onto the floor, carefully navigating a path that would avoid her father, the business card burned in her pocket like a dangerous promise, the first genuine connection she'd felt with someone in longer than she cared to admit. Chapter Dose. Electric collision. Thunder rumbled outside the Blue Note, an underground jazz club where dim blue lights cast mysterious shadows across the intimate space. Rain pelted the sidewalk above, turning evening Manhattan into a glistening maze of reflections. Zara sipped her mocktail slowly, observing the condensation forming delicate patterns on the glass, a small detail in her carefully crafted performance. Her accidental meeting with Jasper Thornton had been meticulously planned, down to her casual outfit of vintage jeans and an oversized cashmere sweater that gave no hint of the fortune behind it. The book on urban sustainability lay open beside her, another calculated detail in her elaborate charade. 3 days had passed since the gala. 3 days of examining her unexpected reaction to Jasper from every angle. She nearly convinced herself the connection had been imagined, a product of loneliness perhaps, or the intoxicating thrill of her first successful deception. Yet his business card remained in her wallet, unmarked but not forgotten. She checked her watch, 9:28 p.m. According to her research, Jasper stopped here most Thursday evenings after his firm's weekly design meeting. The anticipation of seeing him again had distracted her all day, a dangerous development she tried to dismiss as commitment to her social experiment. Raven had warned her that morning. "You're getting too invested. Remember why you're doing this." The concern in her assistant's eyes suggested Raven saw more than Zara wanted to admit. The jazz quartet on stage transitioned to a Thelonious Monk piece, complex and unpredictable, mirroring Zara's own internal dissonance. She'd spent years building walls, first to protect herself from rejection, later to shield herself from those who suddenly found her acceptable. Once her father's wealth became public knowledge, now she was deliberately lowering those defenses to a stranger, albeit under false pretenses. The irony wasn't lost on her. When Jasper walked in at 9:34, shaking raindrops from his coat, her heart raced traitorously. Even from across the room, his presence carried an easy confidence, the practiced swagger of wealth, but something more authentic. His eyes scanned the room before landing on her. Recognition and something more lighting his face as he made his way to the bar. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth, as though he'd found something unexpectedly pleasant. "Zara, the server from the charity gala," he asked, sliding onto the stool beside her. The subtle scent of rain and cedarwood accompanied him, distinctly different from the overpowering colognes favored by most wealthy men she encountered. "I'm surprised you remembered," she replied, feigning nonchalance while her skin tingled with unwelcome awareness. She'd expected to maintain control of this encounter, but something about Jasper disrupted her carefully constructed equilibrium. "I never forget a beautiful face," he said, ordering whiskey neat from the bartender, who nodded with familiar recognition. "Especially one that seems to appreciate Toshiko Akiyoshi." He nodded toward the stage where the quartet was playing, his fingers unconsciously tapping the rhythm on the polished wood of the bar. Zara smiled. Genuinely pleased, he noticed her engagement with the music. "You know jazz. My father played saxophone. Some of my best memories before he got too busy building the Thornton empire." Something vulnerable flickered across his expression, a brief glimpse behind his own mask that she hadn't anticipated. "We'd come to places like this when I was a teenager. He'd sneak me in, bribe the bartenders to look the other way about my age." The shared confidence created an unexpected intimacy between them. Jasper Thornton, revealing unsanctioned teenage adventures, didn't align with his public image as the responsible heir to the Thornton construction fortune. "You never told me what you're doing here," he continued, studying her with quiet intensity that made her wonder how much he could really see. "The music helps me think," she said, offering a partial truth. "I come here to sketch sometimes." She gestured to the notebook beside her, which contained actual designs she'd created another calculated risk, revealing genuine talent beneath her fabricated identity. Jasper leaned closer. "May I?" His hand hovered above her notebook, respectfully awaiting permission, rather than assuming entitlement to her work. Before she could answer, the lights flickered once, twice, then plunged the club into darkness as thunder crashed outside. Gasps and nervous laughter filled the room, phones illuminating faces with ghostly blue light. In the sudden intimacy of darkness, Jasper's hand accidentally brushed against hers on the bar top, a simple contact that sent unexpected electricity through her veins. "Sorry," he whispered, his voice closer than she expected, warm breath grazing her ear. "It's okay," she replied, not moving her hand away as she should have. The darkness provided strange freedom faces, invisible, identities temporarily suspended, social barriers momentarily irrelevant. For several minutes, They sat in darkness, their conversation deepening without visual distractions. Jasper spoke of his dreams to revolutionize urban living, to create spaces that served humanity rather than just wealthy clients. His passion emerged more authentically without the performative aspects of public conversation, revealing an idealism Zara hadn't expected from someone born to such privilege. "I'm fighting my own board on a housing project in Queens," he confessed, frustration evident in his voice. "They see profit margins. I see families who deserve beauty in their everyday environments." Zara shared carefully edited stories from her past, the discrimination she had actually faced before her father's success, the dismissal of her ideas before money gave them sudden credibility. These weren't fabrications but selectively curated truths, making them more dangerous than complete lies. "I grew up without much," she said, telling half-truths about her life before her father's success. "People judged me for things I couldn't control: my neighborhood, my clothes, my skin." "Their loss," Jasper whispered. The darkness made confessions easier, walls lower. Success doesn't eliminate prejudice, just disguises it. Even in my world, I see how differently people of color are treated in architecture, especially women. Design submissions get rejected until they're presented with a white man's name attached. It's infuriating. His understanding surprised her. Most privileged men she'd encountered believed racism had ended or affected only the poor. They claimed not to see color, willful blindness masquerading as enlightenment. Jasper, instead, acknowledged reality without performative guilt or patronizing sympathy. "What about you?" she asked, curious now about the man beyond her research dossier. "Any struggles beneath the Thornton name?" His laugh held little humor, a soft exhale in the darkness. "Golden handcuffs. Everyone wants the brand, not the person. My mother parades eligible socialites before me like prize horses, all with the right pedigree and connections, none with anything to say beyond rehearsed opinions deemed appropriately sophisticated." The bitterness in his voice carried authentic pain rather than entitled complaint. "The perfect wife should be decorative but not disruptive," he continued. "Beautiful enough to impress clients, bland enough to never overshadow her husband. Preferably from the right family with the right complexion." He paused, then added quietly, "It's exhausting pretending to be who they need rather than who I am." The irony of his confession, a complaint about inauthenticity delivered to someone actively deceiving him, wasn't lost on Zara. Guilt fluttered briefly before she suppressed it. When emergency lights finally flickered on, casting everyone in a soft blue glow, their faces were inches apart, breath mingling. Jasper looked at her with an intensity that made her momentarily forget her carefully constructed persona. His eyes searched hers, as though trying to read secrets written there. "You're different," he said simply. No elaborate compliment, no practiced charm, just recognition that cut through her defenses more effectively than any grand gesture could have. "You don't know me," she replied, the words holding more truth than he could possibly understand. "I'd like to." His honesty disarmed her practiced defenses. "Have dinner with me tomorrow." It wasn't a question, but not quite a command either. Somewhere between, delivered with confident hope that bypassed her usual wariness. The script she'd prepared for this encounter hadn't accounted for genuine interest on her part, for the way his direct gaze made her forget momentarily that this was supposed to be an experiment rather than an actual connection. "Yes," she heard herself say before her usual caution could intervene. Hours later, Zara slipped through a hidden passage, disguised as a closet wall, from her modest downtown apartment, maintained solely for her charade, to the private elevator that led to her actual penthouse occupying the building's top 3 floors. The transition between worlds always felt surreal, like stepping through a portal between realities. The penthouse gleamed with understated luxury. Contemporary art on walls. Italian furniture, arranged for conversation rather than impression. Floor to ceiling windows framing Manhattan's glittering skyline. This space reflected her true aesthetic sensibilities, neither the manufactured modesty of her fake apartment, nor the ostentatious display many expected from the newly wealthy. Raven, her assistant and childhood friend, waited with arms crossed and an expression thunderous. At 35, Raven had protected Zara through her mother's death, her father's sudden wealth, and countless social minefields. Her loyalty was absolute, which made her disapproval more cutting. "You're playing with fire," Raven warned, taking Zara's coat with practiced efficiency. "Do you know how many surveillance cameras could have captured you using that passage? And dinner with Jasper Thornton, the son of Reginald Thornton, who sits on 3 boards with your father." "I was careful," Zara replied, pulling off her wig to release her natural curls cascading down her back. The liberation of removing her disguise always brought physical relief and emotional complication. "Besides, it's working. He has no idea who I really am." "That's not what concerns me," Raven replied, following her into the massive living area where floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering city below. "You're getting emotionally involved. I can see it in your face." "It's part of the performance," Zara insisted, avoiding her assistant's knowing gaze. "And when he finds out?" Raven asked, her voice softening with genuine concern. "Because secrets always come out, Zara, especially ones this big." Zara turned away, unwilling to acknowledge the truth in those words. On her phone, a message appeared from Jasper, confirming tomorrow's dinner with an address to a small Ethiopian restaurant, far from the elite establishments frequented by their social circles. She smiled despite herself at his thoughtful choice, a place where she wouldn't be recognized either as a server or as Luna Sterling. "Your father called," Raven said, watching her reaction carefully. "The Sterling Technology Board meeting is tomorrow. They're expecting Luna to attend." Reality crashed back. Luna Sterling, the alter ego she'd created for public appearances, complete with lighter makeup, colored contacts, and platinum blonde wigs, the mysterious Heiress, who rarely appeared in public but controlled half of Whitfield Quantum Technologies through her mother's family shares. "Reschedule," Zara said, thoughts racing between conflicting obligations. "Family emergency?" Raven's expression held sympathy but firmness, the practical reality check Zara often needed. "He specifically said you've rescheduled twice already. The investors are getting suspicious. They want to see the woman behind the algorithms." Zara sighed, the weight of her dual lives suddenly exhausting. The separate identities that had once seemed like powerful protection now felt like prisons of her own making. "Then move my dinner with Jasper to 9. I'll make the board meeting at 7 and leave early." The logistics of changing from Luna to Zara would be challenging, removing wig and contacts, changing clothes, switching makeup palettes, but she'd performed similar transformations before. Yet something about this particular deception felt different, heavier with potential consequence. Across town, Jasper stared at his bedroom ceiling, unable to stop thinking about the mysterious woman who'd awakened something dormant within him. His phone rang persistently, his mother, no doubt calling about the arranged meeting with Luna Sterling, the Whitfield heiress he'd managed to avoid meeting for months through strategic business trips and sudden schedule conflicts. He silenced the call, thinking instead of hazel eyes and the electric current he'd felt in the darkness of the jazz club. For the first time in years, something felt real in his world of strategic alliances and corporate maneuvering. Whatever it was, he wasn't ready to let it go, even as professional instinct warned him that Zara Whitfield contained depths he hadn't yet begun to fathom. Chapter 3. Forbidden Desires. For 2 weeks now, they had been meeting whenever Zara's waitressing schedule allowed. The pretense of her job provided convenient excuses for her availability. Late nights, unpredictable days off, the occasional canceled plans due to unexpected shifts. Their encounters meandered across the city's less fashionable neighborhoods, places where neither of them risked recognition. Ethnic restaurants with food too authentic for the society crowd, hole-in-the-wall jazz venues, independent bookstores hosting obscure author readings. She found herself genuinely looking forward to their conversations, her initial experiment evolving into something unexpectedly real against her better judgment. She'd begun sharing more authentic pieces of herself, genuine opinions about architecture, unfiltered reactions to music, childhood memories only lightly edited to maintain her cover. What had begun as a calculated study of class and race dynamics had transformed into something that made her hands tremble slightly when her phone displayed his name. Raven had stopped offering warnings, replacing them with concerned glances that said more than words could. "This is it," Jasper said, pride evident in his voice as he guided Zara through the abandoned warehouse district on a bright Sunday morning. Sunlight streamed through broken windows, illuminating century-old brick and steel beams with golden light. Birds had made homes in the rafters, their song echoing through cavernous spaces once filled with industrial machinery. Most developers see decay, but I see potential. He looked different today, more animated, less guarded, dressed in worn jeans and a simple button-down with rolled sleeves. He appeared younger, closer to the idealistic student he must have been, before corporate responsibilities layered him with careful polish. A smudge of graphite marked his jaw where he'd absently touched his face while sketching, unaware of the endearing imperfection. Zara knew this neighborhood intimately. Her father's corporation had quietly purchased most of it last year through shell companies, planning a luxury development that would displace the remaining residents. The information had crossed her desk as Luna Sterling just last month, accompanied by projected profit margins and glossy renderings of glass towers that erased all character from the historic district. The irony wasn't lost on her as Jasper enthusiastically showed her blueprints for community spaces and affordable housing, plans that directly contradicted her family's intentions for the area. "Instead of tearing down history, we restore it," he explained, passion making his eyes brighter as he spread plans across a makeshift table. His hands moved expressively as he pointed out details architect's hands with calluses that belied his wealth, evidence of someone who still built models himself rather than delegating all physical work. Mixed-income housing here, community gardens on these rooftops, local businesses in the ground floors. People deserve beautiful spaces, regardless of income. His vision unfolded before her. Courtyards where children could play safely, community kitchens for cultural exchanges, art studios with subsidized rent for local creators, green spaces designed using indigenous plants that required minimal maintenance. Each element balanced beauty and function, respecting both the area's industrial past and its human future. Their shoulders brushed as they walked through empty buildings, each accidental touch amplifying the crackling tension between them. Zara found herself hyper-aware of his proximity, the casual way his hand sometimes rested briefly on her lower back when guiding her through uneven doorways, the subtle cologne that became noticeable only when standing close cedarwood, and something uniquely him. Sunlight filtered through broken skylights, casting his face in alternating shadow and light as they explored. These abandoned spaces felt suspended between past and future, appropriate for a relationship built on half-truths and genuine connection in equal measure. "It's beautiful," she said sincerely, imagining the transformation. The architectural renderings were masterful, considering both aesthetics and human needs in a way that transcended typical development priorities. But finding investors. Jasper's expression dimmed, enthusiasm giving way to familiar frustration. "That's the challenge. The Sterling Whitfield Investment Board rejected it yesterday, said it wasn't commercially viable. They can't see beyond luxury condos and profit margins." Guilt twisted inside her like a knife. Yesterday, disguised in a platinum wig and colored contacts as Luna Sterling, she'd sat silently while board members dismissed Jasper's project. Technical difficulties with her father's video conference had forced her to attend in person, maintaining appearances while he recovered from exhaustion. She'd watched Jasper present his vision with passionate conviction, only to have financial advisors systematically dismantle it with cold efficiency. One had even smirked when pointing out the naive idealism of economic diversity in prime real estate locations. Her silence during that meeting now felt like betrayal. She could have supported him, could have used Luna's considerable influence to champion his vision. Instead, she'd maintained her cover at his expense. "You'll find a way," she encouraged, fighting the urge to confess her role in his disappointment. "The right investor will understand your vision." "Maybe," he conceded, studying her face with an intensity that made her wonder if he could somehow read her guilt. "You believe in it, though, don't you? I can see it in your eyes." She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The irony threatened to choke her. She controlled enough capital as Luna Sterling to fund his entire project without corporate approval, yet couldn't offer him a penny as Zara, the waitress. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining as naturally as if they'd been doing it for years. The simple intimacy felt more significant than their previous casual touches, deliberate rather than accidental, a conscious choice rather than circumstance. "That means more than you know," he said softly. They spent hours exploring the district. Jasper describing his vision for each building, occasionally sketching quick ideas that merged his original plans with suggestions Zara offered. By late afternoon, they'd covered miles, sharing a simple meal from a local food truck whose owner greeted Jasper by name, evidence that he'd spent significant time in this neighborhood, building relationships rather than just studying architecture. Later that evening, they stood on a rooftop garden as sunset painted the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples. The city stretched before them, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled. This forgotten building had once been a manufacturing center, now transformed by community members into an urban farm with vegetable beds and beehives. Teenagers tended plants nearby, giving them curious glances but continuing their work. "You've been coming here a while," Zara observed, noting the familiar way Jasper greeted the young gardeners. "I volunteer with their after-school program twice, a month architecture workshops, basic carpentry skills." The admission came without any hint that he considered this unusual for someone of his status. They built these planter boxes themselves. Better craftsmanship than half the luxury developments my father's company creates. The genuine pride in his voice when speaking of these teenagers' accomplishments revealed more about Jasper Thornton than any society profile ever had. The man she'd researched as a potential subject for her experiment continued to defy her preconceptions. "Why do you hide, Zara?" Jasper asked suddenly, turning to face her. The directness of his question caught her off guard, her heart stuttering. "What do you mean? There's so much intelligence behind your eyes, so much passion when you talk about design and community spaces, yet you're working as a waitress, living in that tiny apartment. It doesn't add up." His observation wasn't accusatory but curious, seeking understanding rather than confrontation. "Not everyone gets the same opportunities," she replied carefully, the practiced excuse sounding hollow even to her ears. 2 weeks together had eroded her ability to lie convincingly to him. Jasper stepped closer, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with gentle fingers. The simple gesture felt achingly intimate. "You're running from something or someone. I won't push, but when you're ready to tell me, I'll listen." The understanding in his eyes nearly broke her. 2 weeks of knowing him, and he saw through her more clearly than men she'd known for years. Not the specific deception, but the fact that she was hiding something significant. "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed, his voice dropping to a whisper that sent shivers across her skin. "There's something about you, Zara, something real in a world of facades. I feel like I can breathe around you." The irony of his words pierced her heart. As his lips descended on hers, the kiss began gently, tentatively a question rather than a demand. When she responded, pulling him closer rather than stepping away, the contact transformed. What started as exploration became recognition heat and hunger, and something deeper that frightened her with its intensity. His hands cradled her face with reverence, while hers gripped his shirt, pulling him closer until they were breathless. The teenagers had discreetly disappeared, leaving them alone with the emerging stars and city lights, creating their own constellation below. "I shouldn't feel this way so quickly," he whispered against her lips, forehead pressed to hers. Vulnerability replaced his usual confidence, revealing uncertainty she hadn't expected from someone so self-assured. "Then stop," she challenged softly, giving him an escape they both knew he wouldn't take. The offer was performative. A script they both understood contained only one possible response. His answer was another kiss, deeper than the first, backing her against the rooftop wall as the last light faded from the sky and stars appeared above them. His body pressed against hers, solid and warm, creating a cocoon of sensation that temporarily drowned out the voice of reason, screaming warnings in her mind. When they finally separated, both breathing heavily, something had fundamentally shifted between them. Lines had been crossed that couldn't be uncrossed, a connection established that couldn't be easily severed. "Have dinner with me tomorrow," he said, the words somewhere between question and statement. "At my place. I'll cook." The invitation held obvious implications of progression in their relationship that demanded decision. Crossing this threshold with Jasper would complicate her already precarious deception exponentially. Yet the thought of stepping away from whatever this was becoming created a hollow ache she hadn't anticipated. "Yes," she answered simply, making a choice she knew might ultimately destroy both of them. That night, after leaving Jasper with promises to meet again tomorrow, Zara sat in her penthouse office, staring at financial projections for the warehouse district. The sterile corporate assessment bore no resemblance to the vibrant community space Jasper had envisioned. With a decisiveness born of growing guilt, she transferred $50 million to Jasper's project through an untraceable cryptocurrency account, routing it through a shell corporation that would appear to be a sustainable development fund impressed with his vision. The transaction complete, she stared at her reflection in the darkened window. Luna Sterling looked back at Heiress persona she'd created as protection now felt like a prison. For the first time since creating her alter ego, Zara wondered which version of herself was the real performance and which the authentic identity. As she completed the transaction, she didn't notice the telephoto lens capturing her image from a building across the street, first entering her modest apartment, then later emerging from her luxury building's private entrance in entirely different clothes. Nor did she see the message sent moments later to Cassian Drake, heir to a rival tech empire. "You were right. She's hiding something." Pictures attached. Somewhere across the city, Jasper Thornton sketched rooftop gardens with a woman's silhouette at the edge, unaware that forces were already in motion that would test whatever was growing between them in ways neither could anticipate. Chapter 4. Gilded Cages. The Thornton family estate sprawled across 30 acres of manicured gardens and architecturally significant buildings. From the road, the main house appeared as a modernist interpretation of a Greek revival mansion, all clean lines and perfect proportions, its limestone facade gleaming in late afternoon sunlight. As the car approached, Zara felt her carefully constructed confidence wavering. 3 weeks had passed since their first kiss on the rooftop. 3 weeks of deepening connection that had progressed from professional admiration to intellectual stimulation to physical intimacy with disorienting speed. Their dinner at Jasper's loft had indeed ended as anticipated, tangled in his sheets until dawn, discovering each other's bodies with the same intensity they'd explored ideas. Since then, they'd been nearly inseparable during her off hours, their relationship progressing with a momentum that alarmed Raven and thrilled Zara, despite her better judgment. Now, sitting in Jasper's Audi as they approached the family compound, Zara hesitated at the imposing gates, second-guessing her decision to accept this dinner invitation. Meeting his family represented a significant escalation in their relationship, one that complicated her already tenuous deception. "They're just people," Jasper reassured her, reaching across the console to squeeze her hand. His touch had become familiar, comforting in ways she hadn't anticipated when starting this charade. "Obscenely wealthy, judgmental people," he added with a self-deprecating smile that revealed tension beneath his casual demeanor. "Comforting," she replied dryly, smoothing her deliberately modest dress, an off-the-rack design she'd carefully selected to appear tasteful but not expensive. She'd spent hours crafting this look, deliberately choosing jewelry that appeared to be family heirlooms rather than costume pieces, styling her hair in a way that suggested natural elegance rather than expensive salons. The irony wasn't lost on her that the Whitfield estate, where she'd grown up, was twice this size, her childhood playground even more ostentatious than the Thornton compound, the difference being that her father's wealth was new money tech billions, rather than generations of construction empire profits. The Whitfields had purchased grandeur. The Thorntons had built it, both literally and figuratively. As they passed through security, Zara observed the buildings with professional appreciation. The estate included various architectural styles spanning decades, a testament to the family's evolution of taste and status. The landscaping featured mature trees imported at enormous expense, gardens designed with seasonal color progression, and water features that appeared natural, despite being meticulously engineered. "Your father designed this main entrance?" she asked, noting the distinctive lines that mirrored Jasper's work, despite their generational differences. "Good eye," Jasper replied, visibly pleased by her observation. His early work, before profit margins became his primary design consideration. The criticism was subtle but evident, another glimpse into the complicated relationship between father and son. As they walked through marble corridors displaying priceless art, Zara maintained her wide-eyed expression of someone unaccustomed to such luxury. The role came more naturally than she liked to admit. Before her father's breakthrough, they had lived comfortably but modestly, her mother's academic salary providing stability, but not extravagance. The genuine Zara had once been exactly who she now pretended to be, woman of modest means, with significant talent. Rothko, she observed quietly, pausing before a canvas of suspended red rectangles. Mid-period. Jasper raised an eyebrow. You know your art. I had a good professor, she replied, the truth providing convenient cover. Her mother had indeed been an academic who emphasized cultural education, despite limited resources. These authentic fragments of herself were becoming increasingly dangerous, creating genuine connection based on partial honesty. Jasper, darling, you're late. The voice cut through their moment with practiced authority. Augusta Thornton swept into the foyer, couture dress whispering against marble floors. At 62, she remained striking. Silver hair cut in a precise bob that emphasized aristocratic cheekbones. Posture suggesting ballet training. Jewelry subtle but unmistakably valuable. Her smile froze slightly as she assessed Zara, eyes cataloging everything from her simple jewelry to her natural hairstyle. Traffic. Mother. This is Zara Whitfield. Zara, my mother. Whitfield? Augusta's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose with the precision of regular Botox treatments. Any relation to Cornelius Whitfield? The question contained layers of meaning beyond its simple inquiry. The Thornton and Whitfield families operated in orbits, with Cornelius's new tech fortune increasingly intersecting with established construction dynasties. Zara's heart stuttered before she forced a casual laugh. I wish. Might help with my student loans. The deflection came with practiced ease, despite the nervous flutter in her stomach. Augusta's smile didn't reach her eyes, her gaze lingering on Zara's complexion with poorly disguised assessment. Well, do come in. Everyone's waiting. Reginald Thornton observed the interaction with practiced neutrality, though his eyes held the same calculating assessment as his wife's. Welcome to our home, Miss Whitfield. Unlike his wife's barely concealed judgment, Reginald's voice carried professional courtesy, the same tone he likely used with contractors and politicians, polite, without warmth. Jasper's hand settled protectively at Zara's lower back, guiding her through the grand entrance hall. The gesture wasn't lost on his parents, whose exchanged glance communicated volumes without words. This wasn't the first girlfriend Jasper had brought home, Zara realized, but something about their reaction suggested she differed significantly from his usual type. The dining room could have hosted 50, but tonight held only 6. Jasper's parents, his younger sister, Ivy, whose bored expression suggested mandatory attendance, and Cassian Drake, whose unexpected presence made Zara's stomach clench. She'd encountered him at board meetings where she appeared as Luna, and though they'd never been formally introduced, something in his calculating gaze suggested danger. Zara, is it? Cassian asked, studying her too intently while servers poured wine worth more than her fabricated monthly rent. His attention felt different from the Thorntons' assessment, less about social status and more about recognition, as though trying to place her face from somewhere significant. Unusual name. Family tradition, she replied smoothly, maintaining eye contact despite her racing heart. And you are? Cassian Drake. Family friend. His emphasis on family made the distinction clear. She was an outsider here, while he belonged, despite not sharing their name. Jasper and I practically grew up together. His brother, Felix, was my best friend. The mention of Felix created immediate tension. Jasper's hand tightened almost imperceptibly around his fork, while Augusta's gaze darted briefly to a portrait, visible through the doorway, a teenaged boy, with Jasper's features but a more carefree smile. Throughout dinner, the interrogation continued beneath a veneer of sophisticated conversation. Where had she studied? A state university, she lied, rather than the private institutions she'd actually attended. Her family? Mother deceased. Father not in the picture, a partial truth twisted for convenience. Her career goals? Urban design. Truthfully, though she omitted that she already controlled a billion-dollar development corporation, Zara navigated the questions with practiced poise, constructing answers that contained enough truth to be convincing without revealing her actual identity. Years of attending similar dinners as Luna Sterling had prepared her for the subtle social warfare conducted over 7 courses and 3 wine pairings. Jasper mentioned you work as a waitress. Augusta said during the palate-cleansing sorbet course, making the profession sound vaguely scandalous, like an embarrassing medical condition one shouldn't mention in polite company. "Mother," Jasper warned, his tone sharpening in a way Zara hadn't heard before. "It's fine," Zara assured him, touching his arm gently. "It pays the bills while I build my portfolio." "And gives you insight into how actual people live," Ivy interjected, her first substantive contribution to the conversation. At 25, she projected carefully cultivated boredom, but Zara sensed sharp intelligence behind her disaffected exterior. Something most architects around this table could use. Reginald cleared his throat. "Ivy has decided social work is more valuable than continuing the family tradition. Rather like Jasper's community, projects admirable but impractical. Depends on how you define value," Ivy countered, raising her glass in a subtle toast toward Zara. "Some of us prefer metrics beyond quarterly profits." The exchange revealed family dynamics that wouldn't appear in any society profile. The younger generation's rebellion against wealth's insulation, and the parents' practiced dismissal of such idealism as a youthful phase rather than legitimate critique. Cassian leaned forward, changing subjects with calculated precision. "You look remarkably familiar, Zara. Have we met before?" "I don't think so," Zara replied, maintaining eye contact despite her racing heart. "I'd remember." Something in his expression suggested disbelief, but he merely smiled and turned to Reginald. "Speaking of familiar faces, I heard Luna Sterling might finally grace the Metropolitan Gala next month. Perhaps we'll finally see the mysterious heiress in something other than carefully staged publicity photos." Tension thickened until the ancient butler, Winston, entered with a silver tray. His eyes widened slightly upon seeing Zara, recognition flickering before being professionally suppressed. She remembered him from a charity gala last year, where he'd served as extra staff, but he said nothing, simply serving dessert with practiced precision. As coffee was poured, Augusta shifted tactics with the precision of a military strategist adjusting to battlefield developments. "Jasper, I forgot to mention, Luna Sterling's assistant called. She's finally agreed to meet about the joint development project next month." Jasper's expression cooled immediately, jaw tightening beneath his carefully maintained composure. "I've told you, I'm not interested in corporate matchmaking. It's business, darling." The Sterling-Whitfield connection would be invaluable. Augusta's voice carried the practiced reasonableness of someone accustomed to getting her way through persistence rather than force. "Their sustainable technology paired with our construction expertise makes perfect sense. That it comes with beneficial personal connections is merely efficient." "Perhaps Jasper has found more appealing connections," Cassian suggested, glancing meaningfully at Zara. The comment carried thinly veiled insinuation that twisted uncomfortably in the air between them. "Of course," Augusta replied with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes, her gaze sweeping over Zara with clinical assessment. "Though I think Jasper needs someone more appropriate for his public image and future." The implication hung in the air with unmistakable clarity. Zara's complexion, background, and perceived social status rendered her insufficient for the Thornton heir, regardless of Jasper's personal preferences. The casual racism, wrapped in concerns about appropriateness, was familiar territory for Zara, though no less painful for its predictability. The crystal wineglass in Jasper's hand shattered without warning, startling everyone as liquid splashed onto the pristine tablecloth. His controlled exterior had finally fractured, raw anger momentarily visible before being carefully contained again. "Jasper!" Augusta exclaimed, more concerned about the vintage tablecloth than her son's evident distress. "Excuse us," he said curtly, standing and gently pulling Zara to her feet. His fingers trembled slightly against hers, revealing the depth of his controlled fury. "I need some air." Ivy caught Zara's eye as they departed, offering a subtle nod that communicated both apology and solidarity. In that brief exchange, Zara recognized a potential ally in this gilded cage of propriety and prejudice. In the extensive gardens behind the mansion, Jasper paced beneath moonlight filtering through ancient oak trees. The night air carried the scent of jasmine and freshly cut grass, the perfection of the grounds extending even to their fragrance. "I'm sorry about them, about all of it." His voice contained more than apology, frustration, embarrassment, and a weariness that suggested this wasn't their first performance of this particular scene. "It's fine," Zara said, having experienced far worse prejudice, both before and after her father's wealth. Social niceties often disguise ugly realities. "It's not fine," he countered, stopping before her. The moonlight carved his features into stark relief, emphasizing the intensity of his expression. Nothing about their behavior was acceptable. Moths danced around garden lamps as crickets chirped in the warm night. The mansion loomed behind them, windows glowing with the wealth and privilege that had shaped Jasper's life a life, not so different from her own carefully hidden reality. "Why do you care what they think of me?" she asked softly, genuinely curious about his reaction. Most privileged men she'd encountered were adept at navigating family disapproval of inappropriate romantic choices, treating such relationships as temporary diversions while ultimately conforming to expectations. Jasper stepped closer, hands framing her face with unexpected tenderness. His fingertips traced her cheekbones, as though memorizing her features. "Because I'm falling in love with you," the confession emerged without qualification or hesitation. "Because in a world of carefully calculated advantages and strategic alliances, you're the only thing that feels real." His admission, so honest and vulnerable, shattered her remaining defenses. The genuine emotion in his voice contained no performance, no social calculation, just raw truth that made her own deception feel increasingly unconscionable. When his lips met hers, passion exploded between them. Weeks of tension, attraction, and growing emotional connection, culminating in desperate hunger. They moved deeper into the garden, hidden by ornamental hedges, as hands explored and breath quickened. Her back pressed against the cool marble of a garden statue as his kisses trailed down her neck, igniting fire beneath her skin. The contrast of cold stone and warm flesh heightened every sensation. "We shouldn't," she whispered unconvincingly as his hand slipped beneath her dress, finding bare skin with practiced ease. The setting added a forbidden thrill to their already intense connection, the propriety of the Thornton estate making their actions more transgressive. "Tell me to stop, and I will," he murmured against her collarbone, his restraint evident despite obvious desire. Even now, he offered choice rather than assumption. Instead, she pulled him closer, surrendering to feelings more powerful than reason or self-preservation. Under moonlight, they made love with an intensity that left them both breathless, clothes disheveled, and hearts racing. The elegant garden became their private wilderness. Marble statues, silent witnesses to passion that defied the careful social constraints of the world beyond their secluded sanctuary. Afterward, wrapped in his suit jacket against the night's growing chill, Zara rested her head on Jasper's chest, listening to his heartbeat as reality slowly intruded back into their private world. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, neither speaking for long moments. "I've never done anything like this," she confessed, truth in the admission, if not the context. Luna Sterling maintained careful propriety in public. Zara Whitfield existed primarily as performance art. Neither identity had previously surrendered control so completely. His fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder, touch both possessive and reverent. Neither have he not like this. The confession contained layers beyond the obvious meaning, not just about making love outdoors, but about the connection itself, the unexpected significance of what was developing between them. Security lights suddenly swept the garden, voices calling Jasper's name. They dressed hurriedly, laughing quietly at their rumpled appearance as adrenaline and lingering desire made them giddy as teenagers. The approaching footsteps lent urgency to their disarray. "Meet me at my place tomorrow," Jasper whispered, stealing one last kiss before they emerged from the hedges, attempting to look composed as a security guard approached with a flashlight. "Mr. Thornton, your mother is looking for you." Jasper nodded, squeezing Zara's hand reassuringly. "Tell her I'll be right in." As they walked back toward the mansion, Zara didn't notice Cassian watching from a darkened window, his phone capturing their disheveled return from the garden. As he sent another message confirmed, they're involved. Proceeding with investigation, the gilded cage of wealth and privilege surrounded them. But for the moment, they'd found freedom within its confines, a dangerous liberty that couldn't last but felt no less real for its inevitable expiration. Chapter 5. Venomous Rival. As they entered the gallery, Zara noticed Cassian watching them from across the room, his expression calculating. Over the past month, his attitude had shifted from dismissive to suspicious. as though trying to place where he might have seen her before. There was something almost personal in Cassian's animosity, as though Zara had taken something that belonged to him, rather than merely threatening his influence over Jasper. Crystal glasses clinked softly against the background of string quartet music at the Hamilton Gallery's exhibition opening. Zara sipped champagne slowly, maintaining her cover as Jasper's date, while avoiding the photographers documenting the event for society pages. 3 weeks had passed since their night in the Thornton Gardens, 3 weeks of deepening connection, nights spent wrapped in each other's arms, and increasingly complex lies to maintain her double life. Tonight's exhibition featured urban renewal photography, drawing the elite architecture and development crowd that Jasper navigated professionally. "You look beautiful," Jasper whispered, returning to her side after greeting colleagues, "though you seem tense." "Everything okay?" "Just out of my element," she replied with a half-truth. The reality was far more complicated. Her father had insisted Luna make an appearance tonight, requiring Raven to manufacture excuses while Zara attended as herself. "Thornton," the sharp voice cut through their conversation. Cassian Drake approached, glass in hand and predatory smile in place. "Hiding your lovely companion from everyone?" "Cassian," Jasper acknowledged coolly. "You remember Zara." "How could I forget?" Cassian's gaze lingered too long on her face. "Still can't shake the feeling we've met before. Perhaps you've waited on his table." Came a cold voice as Augusta Thornton joined them, diamonds glittering at her throat. "Jasper mentioned you work in service." Zara maintained her smile through practiced discipline. "Among other pursuits." "Mother," Jasper warned, "not tonight." "Just making conversation," Augusta replied innocently before turning to Cassian. "Have you heard from Luna Sterling about the development proposal?" Her assistant declined again. Cassian replied, watching Zara's reaction carefully. "Quite mysterious, our Miss Sterling. Rarely seen in public since her father's success. Some speculate she doesn't actually exist." "Oh, she exists," Augusta assured him. "We met years ago at a benefit. Striking woman. Fair skin. Unusual eyes, nothing like what Jasper usually prefers." The barb was deliberate, her gaze flicking meaningfully to Zara's dark complexion. Jasper's arm tightened around Zara's waist. "I need to introduce Zara to Hiroshi about the community center designs. Excuse us." As they walked away, Cassian deliberately stepped backward, colliding with Zara and spilling red wine down the front of her dress. "Clumsy me," he apologized with false sincerity. "Let me help." "I've got it," Zara said sharply, already moving toward the restrooms. In the private bathroom, she blotted at the spreading stain, frustration mounting. Her phone buzzed Raven, warning that her father was en route to the gallery, expecting to meet Luna for a rare public appearance together. "Perfect," she muttered, examining her ruined dress. She'd need to leave before he arrived, but Jasper would question her sudden departure. From her purse, she nearly pulled designer replacement clothes before remembering her waitress cover story wouldn't explain Gucci in her bag. The bathroom door opened, revealing Cassian. "Men's room is occupied," he explained, locking the door behind him. "And we need to talk." "This is the ladies' room," Zara said coldly, "and we have nothing to discuss." "Don't we, Miss Sterling? Or do you prefer Whitfield in this disguise?" Ice flooded her veins. "I don't know what you're talking about." Cassian's laugh held no humor. "Save it. I have photographs of you entering both your fake apartment and your actual penthouse. The question is why? What game are you playing with Jasper?" "You're mistaken," she maintained, mind racing for explanations. "Am I?" He moved closer. "What's your angle? Slumming for fun? Testing Jasper's character before revealing your billions? The devoted daughter helping daddy secure the Thornton architectural contracts?" "Stay away from me," she warned, hand tightening around her phone. "Or what?" he challenged. "You'll call security? Have me thrown out? Hard to do without revealing yourself." The standoff was interrupted by pounding on the door. "Zara," Jasper called, "are you okay?" "Fine," she replied, eyes locked with Cassian's. "Just cleaning up." "Be right out." Cassian stepped back. "This isn't over. Jasper deserves to know who he's really sleeping with." When she emerged minutes later, Jasper immediately noticed her pallor. "What happened? Did Cassian say something?" "Just feeling unwell," she lied. Would you mind taking me home?" As they left, neither noticed the photographer capturing their departure, nor Cassian approaching Cornelius Whitfield, who had just arrived, looking for his daughter's alter ego. Later that night, in Jasper's loft, their lovemaking took on a desperate edge, Zara clinging to him as though memorizing his body, knowing Cassian's threat endangered everything they'd built. "I love you," Jasper whispered afterward, the words simultaneously perfect and devastating. "I know it's fast, but I've never been more certain of anything." Tears stung her eyes as she curled against him, unable to respond through the knot of guilt in her throat. How could she tell him she loved him too, when everything between them was built on fundamental deception? Chapter 6. Twisted Truths. Rain pattered against the window of Jasper's secluded lake house, creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. The weekend getaway had been his surprise 2 days isolated from the world, from his family's disapproval, and the growing pressure of his architectural firm. "It's been in the family for generations," he explained, leading Zara through rooms of rustic luxury. "The only property I actually love." Bookshelves lined walls, fishing equipment hung in the screen porch, and photographs revealed younger versions of Jasper with a strikingly similar boy. "My brother," Jasper said quietly, noticing her attention on the images. "Felix died in a boating accident here when we were 16. Cassian was with us but swam to shore. Sometimes I think he blames me too." Jasper rarely spoke of his younger brother, Felix, whose drowning accident years ago had shaped both his protective nature and his passion for creating safe community spaces. Zara wrapped her arms around him, feeling his pain as if it were her own. "It wasn't your fault. You were children." "Rationally, I know that," he said, hands tightening on her waist. "But it changed everything. After we lost him, my parents became obsessed with legacy, with pushing me toward greatness to compensate for his absence." Cassian drifted away, became calculating, competitive. "Is that why you're so passionate about community spaces, safe environments?" His smile held sadness and appreciation for her insight. "Nothing gets past you, does it? Yes, architecture isn't just aesthetic to me. It's about creating spaces where people feel secure, protected." As evening fell, they swam naked in the still warm lake, moonlight silvering their bodies as they floated beneath stars. Later, before a crackling fire, Jasper opened rare wine while Zara prepared dinner from local ingredients. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" he asked, sampling her perfectly seasoned dish. "The truth, private chefs from age 12 wasn't an option. My mother taught me before she died. Cooking was our connection." "Tell me about her," Jasper said, refilling their glasses. For once, Zara shared genuine memories, her mother's academic brilliance, her struggle with cancer, her death before seeing her husband's technological breakthrough that changed their lives forever. The partial truths flowed easier than complete fabrications, creating a dangerous blend of authenticity and deception. "She faced so much discrimination in academia," Zara explained, pain evident in her voice. "Brilliant black woman, constantly overlooked for promotions, her research attributed to male colleagues. Even when I was young, I noticed how people treated her differently." "Is that why you're so guarded?" Jasper asked gently. "These experiences taught you to protect yourself." The insight struck uncomfortably close to her core truth. "Maybe. After experiencing rejection based solely on appearance, you start to wonder what's real." Jasper sat down his wine, moving to kneel before her chair. "This is real," he said, taking her hands. "Us. Whatever you're hiding, whatever you're afraid to tell me, it doesn't change how I feel." Guilt crashed through her. He sensed her secrets, but misinterpreted their nature. "Jasper, there are things about me, about my life." Her phone buzzed insistently Raven's emergency code. Excusing herself, Zara took the call in the bathroom, keeping her voice low. "Your father collapsed at the office," Raven reported tensely. "They've taken him to Memorial Hospital, heart-related. He's asking for you." Terror gripped Zara. "How serious?" "Doctors are with him now. You need to come as Luna." Press is already gathering. Returning to Jasper, Zara manufactured a story about her roommate's emergency, hating each lie that widened the chasm between them. "I'll drive you back to the city," he offered immediately. "No," she insisted, mind racing for excuses. Stay here. I'll take your car and send a service for it tomorrow." His confusion was evident, but he didn't argue, concern for her distress overriding questions. As she packed hurriedly, Jasper caught her hands. "Whatever's happening, remember I'm here for you, all of you, even the parts you're not ready to share." His sincerity nearly broke her. Their goodbye kiss held desperate intensity, both sensing an undefined precipice beneath their feet. Hours later, platinum wig in place and designer clothes establishing her Luna Sterling identity, Zara sat beside her father's hospital bed, holding his hand while photographers captured images through windows, despite security's efforts. "This charade has gone far enough," Cornelius said weakly, monitors beeping steadily beside him. "Jasper Thornton is a good man. From everything I've heard, if you love him, tell him the truth." "It's complicated now," she admitted, tears threatening. "What if he can't forgive the deception?" "Then he doesn't deserve you," her father replied simply. "But secrets this big don't stay buried, Luna. Better he hears it from you than discovers it himself." Neither noticed the hospital security camera capturing their conversation, nor realized that footage would soon reach someone with motivation to use it destructively. Chapter 2: Dangerous Exposure. The sleek glass Thornton Architecture headquarters gleamed in the setting sun as Zara approached, her heart heavy with the news of Jasper's project collapse. 3 months into their relationship, she'd watched him pour his soul into the community development, only to have funding mysteriously evaporate overnight. Inside Jasper's corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city skyline he'd helped shape. He stood with his back to the door, shoulders tense as he stared at blueprints spread across his desk. "Jasper," she called softly. He turned, exhaustion evident in the shadows beneath his eyes, but his face brightened seeing her. "You came." "Of course I came." She crossed to him, letting herself be enveloped in his embrace. "What happened?" "Everything fell apart in 24 hours, he explained, gesturing to financial reports scattered across his desk. "Every investor withdrew simultaneously, permits denied. Even the community support letters mysteriously retracted." "That can't be coincidence," Zara said, examining the documents with professional insight she couldn't reveal. "It's not." Jasper's voice hardened. "Cassian Drake systematically destroyed everything called in favors, spread rumors about structural flaws in my previous designs. All lies but effective ones." Guilt twisted inside her. She could fix this with one phone call as Luna Sterling, could counter Cassian's influence with her family's greater power, but doing so would raise impossible questions. "Maybe I can help," she offered cautiously. "I know people from my waitressing jobs." "What people, Zara?" Jasper interrupted, frustration finally breaking through. "High-tipping customers? This project needed millions, the kind of millions only people like my family or the Whitfields have." She flinched at her family name, but Jasper was too agitated to notice. "And speaking of connections," he continued, pacing now, "explain something to me. 3 weeks ago, when everything collapsed, a mysterious foundation called Renaissance Futures contacted us. They're fully funding the project, no questions asked. The same day you disappear for 48 hours with a family emergency, you refuse to discuss." Zara's blood ran cold. Renaissance Futures was her personal foundation, created to anonymously support causes she believed in. She'd established it to help Jasper without exposing herself, but hadn't anticipated his suspicion. "That's kinda coincidence," she managed. "Is it?" He stopped pacing, turning to face her directly. "Like how you always disappear before major press events? Or how you somehow knew the inside details of the West Side development deal before it was public? Or why Reginald's butler recognized you, despite your claim of never working high society events before?" "Zara, who are you really?" he demanded, voice rising. "Because the pieces don't fit. Zara, you claim to be a struggling waitress saving for design school, but you speak 4 languages and recognized a rare Monet forgery at the gallery opening. You say you grew up without privilege, but your table manners are flawless, and you knew exactly which obscure Mozart piece the quartet played at my parents' anniversary." His insight struck too close to her carefully constructed facade. Panic rose as she scrambled for explanations. "My life is complicated," she began weakly. "Then uncomplicate it," he challenged, moving closer until he stood directly before her. Because I'm in love with you, but I can't shake the feeling that the woman I love doesn't actually exist. The raw honesty in his voice broke something inside her. As he watched her internal struggle, his expression softened, hands gently gripping her shoulders. Whatever it is, we can work through it together, he promised. Just tell me the truth. For one breathless moment, Zara considered confessing everything, her identity, her deception, her love that had grown genuine despite its fraudulent foundation. The words formed in her throat, prepared to shatter the elaborate charade she'd maintained. Before she could speak, his office door burst open. Cassian Drake stood in the doorway, triumph gleaming in his eyes as he held up his phone. "Perfect timing," he announced, striding into the room uninvited. "I was just coming to show Jasper something fascinating." "Get out," Jasper ordered, stepping protectively in front of Zara. "Oh, I think you'll want to see this first." Cassian turned his phone screen toward them, displaying surveillance photos. Zara entering her fake apartment, then later emerging from her luxury penthouse's private elevator. Quite the double life, isn't it? Jasper frowned, glancing between the photos and Zara's paling face. "What is this?" "Ask her," Cassian suggested with malicious pleasure. "Ask her about the penthouse registered to Luna Sterling. Ask her why she disappears during events. Luna is scheduled to attend, or better yet," he swiped to another photo, showing Zara in her Luna disguise visiting her father in the hospital. "Ask her why she's been lying to you from the beginning." Understanding dawned in Jasper's eyes as he turned to Zara, disbelief warring with betrayal. "Luna? You're Luna Sterling?" The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "Jasper, I can explain." "Explain what?" he demanded, voice dangerously quiet. "That you've been manipulating me? That our entire relationship is some kind of experiment? Was anything real?" "Everything I feel for you is real," she insisted, reaching for him. He stepped back, avoiding her touch. "But built on what, Zara? Or should I call you Luna? Which name is even real?" "Both," she whispered. "I'm both." Cassian watched their exchange with undisguised satisfaction. "She's been playing you, Jasper. The question is why? Testing if you'd love her without her fortune? Or just amusing herself with how easily she could deceive you?" "Shut up, Cassian," Jasper snapped, never taking his eyes from Zara's face. "I want to hear it from her." Tears spilled down her cheeks as Zara fought to explain the inexplicable. "After my father's success, suddenly men who had rejected me for my skin color came crawling back, interested only in my money. I wanted to find someone who would love me for myself, not my name or fortune. Then I met you, and everything changed. So this was all an experiment?" Jasper's voice cracked. "Our relationship was just you testing my character?" "No, it began that way. But what happened between us was real as real." "Real?" He laughed bitterly. "You've been living a double life, Zara. Pretending to be someone you're not. Was any moment between us genuine, or was I just a laboratory rat running your maze?" "Every moment was genuine," she insisted desperately. "Please, Jasper, I need you to leave," he said coldly, turning away from her. "Both of you. Now. Jasper, please." "Now," he roared, pain transforming into fury. Zara gathered her purse with trembling hands, tears flowing freely now. Cassian stepped aside with mock courtesy as she moved toward the door. "For what it's worth," Cassian called to Jasper, "I was trying to protect you." "Get out before I throw you out," Jasper replied, not turning around. In the elevator, Zara leaned against the wall, legs barely supporting her as grief threatened to overwhelm her. Her phone rang. Raven warning that reporters had somehow learned Luna Sterling was dating Jasper Thornton, creating a media firestorm. "They're waiting outside," Raven cautioned. Cassian must have tipped them off. As the elevator doors opened, camera flashes blinded her. Reporters shouting questions about her deception while security struggled to create a path to her waiting car. Through the chaos, she glimpsed Jasper watching from his office window, his expression unreadable before he turned away, drawing the blinds closed. The symbolic gesture wasn't lost on Hearth. Man who had finally seen her was now shutting her out entirely. Chapter 8. Tangled Web. Camera flashes blinded Zara as she pushed through the media scrum outside Thornton Architecture, questions bombarding her from all sides. "Are you really Luna Sterling? How long have you been deceiving Jasper Thornton? Is this a publicity stunt for your father's company? Security guards finally extracted her to a waiting car, where Raven sat, expression grim. How bad is it? Zara asked, collapsing into the back seat. Social media is exploding. Billionaire Heiress lives double life is trending worldwide. Your father's been calling non-stop, and Jasper. Raven's silence was answer enough. At her penthouse, Cornelius Whitfield waited, concern etched into his face. Are you all right? No, Zara admitted, tears threatening again. I've lost him, Dad. Her father embraced her as she broke down completely. After years of maintaining perfect composure in boardrooms and galas, Zara finally shattered, sobbing against her father's shoulder like the child she'd never fully been allowed to be. I did warn you about masks, he said gently when her tears subsided. They protect us, but eventually, they suffocate the wearer. I just wanted someone to love me for myself, she whispered. And did you show him yourself? Your true self? He challenged softly. Or did you show him another character, the struggling waitress, instead of the privileged heiress? Neither is the complete Zara. His wisdom struck home painfully. She'd been so focused on hiding her wealth that she'd created another incomplete version of herself. What do I do now? Give him time, Cornelius advised. Then, try for honesty, complete honesty. The next morning, newspapers plastered their story everywhere. Paparazzi camped outside both her buildings. Social media dissected every public interaction between Jasper and waitress Zara, looking for signs of her deception. Cassian launched a calculated media offensive, presenting himself as protecting his friend from a manipulative woman. Jasper Thornton is an honest man who was cruelly deceived, he told reporters. The Whitfield heiress played with his emotions for her own amusement. Jasper himself remained silent, vanishing from public view. Her calls went unanswered, messages unread. After 3 days of media siege, Zara made a decision. She called a press conference as Luna Sterling, appearing publicly in her natural hair and minimal makeup, no more wigs, no more colored contacts. For the first time, she presented herself as simply Zara Whitfield. I've made a terrible mistake, she admitted to the assembled press. I created Luna Sterling as a shield after experiencing years of rejection based on my appearance, only to face shallow interest in my fortune later. I wanted to find someone who would see me for myself, not my skin color or bank account. She paused, composing herself. But in doing so, I hurt someone I love deeply. I apologized to Jasper Thornton, who deserved better than my deception, regardless of my intentions. Questions exploded, but she walked away, having said what mattered. That evening, as she sat alone in her penthouse, her security team alerted her to a visitor. Her heart leapt, hoping for Jasper, but instead found Cassian Drake. What do you want? She asked coldly, refusing him entry beyond the foyer. To explain something you don't understand, he replied, unusually serious. Jasper hasn't rejected you just because of your lies. Then why? Cassian's expression grew serious. What you don't know is that you're connected to Jasper's greatest trauma. 20 years ago, his brother, Felix, drowned at their family lake house. What does that have to do with me? Zara asked, genuinely confused. The Whitfields rented the neighboring property that summer. Cassian explained. I recognized you when we first met at dinner. It took time to confirm, but I did. Memory stirred in Zara fragments of a childhood summer. A neighboring boy who sometimes waved from across the lake. I was only 10 then. I barely remember it. Jasper doesn't know you were there, Cassian continued. He never saw you, but I did. And I remember how Felix talked about the pretty girl next door. His interest in you distracted him that day. Understanding dawned. This wasn't just about protecting Jasper from deception. Cassian's vendetta was tied to unresolved grief for his childhood friend. I wasn't even at the lake when it happened, she said quietly, piecing together fragmented memories. My mother had taken me shopping. I heard about a drowning afterward, but never connected it to Jasper's family. Jasper has carried enough guilt, Cassian said. Finding out you were there, that Felix's infatuation with you played a role. While you've been deceiving him all these months, it would destroy him. So what do you want from me? Disappear from his life, Cassian answered simply. No more contact, No more anonymous donations, nothing. You're blackmailing me. I'm protecting my friend, he corrected. Leave him alone, or I'll tell him everything about that summer. After Cassian left, Zara sat motionless in the darkness, the full weight of past and present crushing her. The universe had a cruel sense of irony, her childhood connection to Jasper's greatest trauma now threatening any chance of reconciliation. As midnight approached, her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Rooftop garden where we first kissed. 1A. M. If you want to talk. Jasper. Heart pounding. She entered the building where they'd shared their first kiss 3 months ago. The rooftop garden was deserted except for Jasper, standing silhouetted against the city lights. Thank you for coming, she said softly, stopping several feet away. He didn't turn. I almost didn't. I wouldn't blame you. I've spent 4 days trying to understand, he said, finally turning to face her. Why maintain the charade for months? Why not tell me once we became serious? At first, it was my experiment, she admitted. Then it became fear that revealing my deception would cost me you. The longer it continued, the harder confession became. Did you enjoy it, watching me fumble through introducing you to my privileged world, thinking you weren't part of it? No, she answered honestly. Every lie felt like a betrayal, but every moment with you was real, Jasper. My feelings were never fabricated. He shook his head. How can I believe anything you say now? You can't. She acknowledged painfully. I've destroyed that trust. I can only tell you that I love you and hope someday you might forgive me. Love built on lies isn't love, he said, turning away again. I needed to see you to understand if there was anything salvageable here, but I can't see past the deception yet. Jasper, she said hesitantly, there's something else you should know. About the summer your brother died. He stiffened visibly. What about it? I was there, she said gently. My family rented the neighboring property. I didn't remember until Cassian told me, but I've confirmed it through family records. Jasper turned slowly, shock evident on his face. You knew Felix? Not really. I saw him occasionally across the lake. I wasn't there the day he drowned. My mother had taken me shopping. I heard about the accident afterward but never connected it to your family until now. Why would Cassian keep this from me all these years? He just told me tonight. He threatened to reveal it if I didn't stay away from you permanently, she admitted. I couldn't let him use it as leverage. You deserve to hear it from me. The honesty in her voice seemed to reach him. For a moment, something softened in his expression before he steeled himself again. I need time, Zara time, to process everything. The deception, this connection to Felix, all of it. I understand, she said, fighting back tears. Will I see you again? I don't know, he answered honestly. I need to separate truth from performance, past from present. I need to understand what's real between us, if anything. As she left him standing alone on the rooftop, Zara wondered if some wounds were too deep to heal, if some deceptions, however well-intentioned, created permanent barriers to trust. Chapter 9. Shattered Illusions. 2 weeks passed with no word from Jasper. Zara threw herself into work, using Luna Sterling's public identity to launch initiatives addressing racial bias in architectural contracts. The foundation she established awarded grants specifically to minority designers, creating opportunities routinely denied based on skin color rather than talent. Raven entered her office with the day's schedule. Board meeting at 11, lunch with sustainable developers at 1, and Jasper Thornton has requested a meeting. Zara's heart stuttered. When? For today, at his office. Raven hesitated. Are you sure that's wise? No, Zara admitted, but I'll go anyway. The intervening hours crawled by the crawled. Zara changed outfits 3 times, finally settling on a simple dress that represented neither extreme of her former personas, neither waitress nor heiress. Just Zara. Arriving at Thornton Architecture, she found the reception area empty except for Cassian Drake, lounging in a chair with predatory ease. He's running late, Cassian explained, examining his manicured nails. Traffic. Why are you here? She asked coldly. Jasper and I are finalizing our new partnership, he replied with satisfaction. Thornton Drake Architecture has a ring to it, don't you think? Zara masked her surprise. Jasper had resisted Cassian's business overtures for years, valuing independence over the advantages of Drake money. "Congratulations," she said neutrally. Cassian leaned forward. "I know what you're doing with your minority architecture grants very noble. Almost makes up for destroying a man's faith in humanity." "That's enough, Cassian." Jasper stood in the doorway, expression unreadable as he observed them. Zara's breath caught at the sight of him thinner, with shadows beneath his eyes matching her own sleepless nights. "My office," he said simply, turning without waiting for her response. Inside his minimalist space, blueprints for a massive development covered one wall, the Drake Global Headquarters, according to the title block. "Your partnership project?" she asked, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "Cassian offered what I couldn't refuse," Jasper replied, not quite meeting her eyes. "Full creative control and funding for the community project if I designed his headquarters." "A bargain with strings attached," she observed. He finally looked directly at her. "Like accepting anonymous funding from Luna Sterling." The barb struck home. "I deserved that. Is that why you wanted to see me? To make comparisons between our respective compromises?" "No," he sighed, dropping into his chair. "I asked you here because, despite everything, I can't stop thinking about you, about us. I'm trying to understand if anything was real." Hope fluttered dangerously in her chest. Everything important was real. "Was it?" He pushed a folder toward her. "These arrived yesterday's security footage from my family's lake house 20 years ago. Cassian sent them anonymously, but I recognized his methods." Zara's blood turned to ice as she opened the folder. Grainy images showed a young girl, unmistakably her at age 10, playing near the lake where Felix had drowned. "These confirm what you told me on the rooftop," Jasper said quietly. "You really were there that summer." "Yes," she admitted, relieved he acknowledged their previous conversation. "As I said, I barely remember it. I was just a child." According to Cassian's investigation, Felix had developed a childhood crush on the mysterious girl next door. That day, he was trying to impress you by swimming to the floating dock during a storm after boasting he could make it, Jasper explained. "Cassian blames himself for not stopping him, blames me for falling asleep when I should have been watching, and has apparently transferred some of that blame to you simply for being the object of Felix's infatuation. His resentment festered for years, which partly explains his vendetta against you now." "Jasper, I was 10 years old. I wasn't even at the lake when he drowned. My mother had taken me shopping." "I heard about the accident afterward," Zara said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "But you were connected to the worst tragedy of my life, even then," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "And you never mentioned it." "Because I didn't know. I didn't connect your brother to that incident until Cassian told me 2 weeks ago," she replied. Jasper froze. "Cassian told you when?" "After my press conference. He came to my penthouse, revealed the connection, and threatened to tell you unless I stayed away from you permanently," she admitted. Anger flashed across Jasper's face. "He had no right." "No," she agreed quietly, "but he cares about you in his way by manipulating me, using your brother's death as leverage." Jasper stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Everything in my life feels like a lie recently, Cassian. Even my parents." "Your parents?" Zara asked, surprised. He laughed bitterly, a soft exhale in the dimming light. "Apparently, they've been pushing me toward Luna Sterling for years because they identified you as the mysterious girl from that summer. They believed joining our families would somehow honor Felix's memory." The twisted web of connections and manipulations left Zara speechless. All these years, all these elaborate charades, and they had been invisibly connected since childhood. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "I don't know," he answered honestly, turning to face her. "I came within minutes of calling Cassian to cancel our partnership after seeing these photos. Then I realized I'd be making another emotion-based decision without all the facts like you did with me," she observed softly. "Like I did." "Yes." He moved closer, studying her face. "Tell me one thing with complete honesty. Why did you create the waitress persona? The real reason?" Zara took a deep breath, offering the unvarnished truth. "Because I was tired of being rejected for my skin, then pursued for my money." Men who had called me too dark suddenly found me acceptable once my father's billions were in the equation. I wanted someone who would see just me without either prejudice or advantage influencing their perception. And the donations to my projects? Because I believed in your vision, she said simply, not to manipulate you or earn your gratitude. I could have funded them publicly as Luna, but I didn't want to pressure you or create obligation. Jasper nodded slowly, absorbing her words. Before he could respond, his office door burst open. Cassian stood there, rage distorting his features as he saw them together. You promised you'd stay away from him, he snarled at Zara. No, she corrected calmly. You threatened me if I didn't. I made no promises. Jasper stepped between them. You've interfered enough, Cassian. Using my brother's memory to manipulate both of us ends now. I was protecting you, Cassian insisted. She's toxic, Jasper. She destroyed your family once. A 10-year-old girl did not destroy my family, Jasper interrupted coldly. And I'm done, letting Felix's death control my future. Our partnership is over. You can't mean that, Cassian protested, shock replacing anger. We've signed contracts. Check the termination clauses, Jasper suggested. I added specific language about ethical breaches. Blackmailing Zara qualifies. You're choosing her after everything she did? I'm choosing to make my own decisions, Jasper clarified, without your interference, or my parents' manipulation, or even Zara's influence. Now, get out of my office. After Cassian stormed out, silence settled between them. The confrontation had changed something fundamental, not repairing the breach between them, but clearing space for whatever might come next. That was 20 years of friendship you just ended, Zara observed quietly. It ended long before today, Jasper replied. I just finally acknowledged it. He moved to stand before her, close but not touching. I'm not ready to forgive everything yet. I need time to process who you really are, not Luna, not the waitress, but the woman behind both masks. I understand, she said, her heart aching with both hope and fear. But I'd like to try, he continued hesitantly, reaching for her hand, starting with honesty, complete honesty from both of us. As their fingers intertwined, Zara felt something fragile beginning to rebuild between them, more tentative than before, but potentially stronger for having been broken and consciously repaired. Chapter D's. Paradise Lost. Miss Sterling, your 3 o'clock is waiting. Zara nodded to her assistant, straightening her blazer before entering the conference room. 1 month had passed since her confrontation with Jasper and Cassian. Though she and Jasper had agreed to take time apart to process everything, work had inevitably drawn them back into each other's orbits. Today's meeting was officially about her foundation, funding his community project, now freed from Cassian's toxic influence, but the professional pretext fooled neither of them. He stood as she entered, their eyes meeting with the same electricity that had sparked between them from the beginning. No matter what personas they presented to the world, that connection remained unchanged. Miss Sterling, he greeted formally, aware of her assistant hovering nearby. Mr. Thornton. She closed the door, finally allowing a genuine smile. Thank you for coming. For an hour, they discussed the project professionally, both hyper-aware of each other while maintaining appropriate distance. As they concluded, Jasper gathered his materials with deliberate slowness. Would you have dinner with me tonight? He asked quietly. To continue our conversation. Yes, she answered, perhaps too quickly. Me place, and ought. The penthouse that had once symbolized her deception now became the setting for potential reconciliation. Zara dismissed staff, preparing the meal herself as a small gesture toward the authentic self she was trying to present. When Jasper arrived, awkwardness hung between them despite their natural chemistry. They ate on her terrace overlooking the city, conversation cautiously avoiding personal territory until dessert. I've been thinking about masks, Jasper finally said, setting down his fork. We all wear them, professional masks, social masks, protective masks. Yours were just more literal than most. Does that excuse the deception? She asked, genuinely curious about his evolving perspective. No, he admitted, but it helps me understand it. I've realized I wore my own masks with you, the successful architect, hiding his insecurities, the confident man concealing childhood trauma. Outside, Thunder rumbled as storm clouds gathered, mirroring the charged atmosphere between them. "I've missed you," Zara confessed, the words escaping before she could reconsider. "I've missed you too," he replied, eyes darkening with unmistakable desire, despite my best efforts not to. The first raindrops fell as electrical tension built between them. When lightning flashed, illuminating his face, something primal overcame their careful restraint. Jasper moved around the table in 2 strides, pulling her into a kiss that contained months of frustrated longing, hurt, and unresolved passion. They crashed against the living room wall, hands desperate as they rediscovered each other's bodies. Their lovemaking held none of their previous tenderness. This was raw emotion transformed into physical connection, both punishment and reconciliation, expressed through increasingly urgent touch. Afterward, they lay tangled in her sheets, thunder still rolling outside as rain lashed against windows. The physical release had changed nothing and everything. Their fundamental issues remained, but something had shifted in their dynamic. "What happens now?" Zara asked, echoing her question from weeks before. Jasper propped himself on one elbow, studying her face. "I don't know. I'm still angry about the deception, still working through what was real and what wasn't." "All of it was real," she insisted, "just incomplete." "That's the problem," he said softly. "I fell in love with incomplete versions of you. I'm still learning who the complete Zara really is." She traced his jawline gently. "And I'm still learning who I am without the masks. Luna was as much a shield for me as my waitress persona was an experiment." "Then perhaps that's what we do now," he suggested. "Learn who we truly are separately and together." The proposal wasn't forgiveness or reconciliation yet, but it offered possibility a path forward through honesty rather than performance. As Jasper dressed to leave, Zara watched him from the doorway. "Why did you really come tonight?" He paused, considering his answer carefully. "Because, despite everything, when I imagine my future, you're still in it. I'm just not sure in what capacity yet." After he left, Zara stood at her window, watching the rain transform the city skyline below. Paradise lost, perhaps, but not destroyed completely, just changed into something more complex than the fantasy they'd initially created. Her phone chimed with a message from Jasper. "Thank you for dinner, and for the truth for tonight." It wasn't a declaration of love or forgiveness, but it was a beginning to... Sometimes, she reflected, that was enough. Chapter 11. Reflection and Growth. 3 months of separation had changed them both. Jasper immersed himself in smaller community projects, reconnecting with his original architectural vision. Each design seemed to process a piece of his pain, transforming hurt into purpose. Zara, meanwhile, stepped fully into her identity. No more hiding, no more personas. Her foundation's work became more personal as she spoke openly about the discrimination she'd faced before wealth and the opportunism she'd encountered after it. On a crisp autumn morning, Jasper visited her childhood neighborhood alone, speaking with her former neighbors and teachers. He pieced together the authentic Zara, brilliant but guarded, shaped by both privilege and prejudice in ways he was only beginning to understand. She always stood out, her old math teacher told him, not just for her intelligence, but for her determination to be seen beyond appearances. These glimpses into her true history offered context for her deception that his hurt had previously prevented him from seeing. That evening, Zara sat for a television interview, discussing her foundation's newest initiative: scholarships for minority students in architecture programs nationwide. "Your personal story has inspired many," the interviewer noted. "Growing up, facing rejection based on your appearance, then finding success despite those barriers, what would you tell young women of color facing similar challenges?" "That your value isn't determined by others' limited perception," Zara answered thoughtfully. "I spent years hiding behind masks, literal and figurative, because I believed that was necessary to be seen. I've learned that authentic visibility, however uncomfortable, is more powerful than any performance." Across town, Jasper watched the interview in his office, struck by the honesty and vulnerability she displayed publicly. The woman on screen was neither Luna Sterling nor waitress Zara, but someone more complex and genuine than either persona. That evening, his phone rang. Cassian Drake, making his first contact since their confrontation. "I saw her interview," Cassian said without preamble. "And?" Jasper replied coolly. "I've been wrong," Cassian admitted, the words clearly costing him considerable pride. "About many things, but especially about her intentions toward you." Jasper remained silent, waiting. "I was jealous," Cassian continued reluctantly, "of how she connected with you in ways I never could. Despite our history, I used Felix's memory as a weapon, and I'm sorry. Why tell me this now? Because watching her today, I finally understood she truly loves you." Cassian's voice softened uncharacteristically. "And I think you still love her too." After ending the call, Jasper made a decision he'd been considering for weeks. He drove to Zara's childhood neighborhood, the modest suburban community where she'd grown up before her father's technological breakthrough created their fortune. The middle-class area looked nothing like the environment he'd imagined based on her waitress persona's backstory. Speaking with longtime residents, he discovered the real Zara, brilliant girl who'd faced taunting about her appearance, whose mathematician mother had encouraged her architectural interests while battling the cancer that eventually took her life. "Those were difficult years for Cornelius and Zara," an elderly neighbor recalled. "After losing her mother, that child threw herself into her studies. Then, when her father's invention succeeded and they moved away, people who'd been cruel suddenly wanted connections. Can't blame her for being cautious with people afterward." Each conversation revealed another facet of the authentic woman behind the masked pieces of truth embedded within the performances she'd constructed, genuine vulnerability beneath calculated presentations. That night, Jasper found himself outside her building, staring up at the penthouse floors without announcing his presence. They hadn't spoken directly in weeks, though they'd exchanged occasional professional emails. Instead of going up, he returned to his studio and began sketching a concept for her foundation's headquarters that incorporated elements from her childhood community, her mother's mathematical influence, and subtle architectural nods to removed masks and revealed structures. The design poured from him until dawn, expressing things he couldn't yet say directly. 2 days later, Zara received an unmarked tube containing his sketches with a simple note. "The real you, as I'm beginning to understand her." The designs moved her to tears, not just for their beauty, but for the insight they revealed. Jasper had gone looking for her true self and created something that honored her complete story, not just the fragments she'd selectively shared. She called him immediately. "How did you know about my mother's influence on my design aesthetic?" "I've been learning who you really are," he said simply, "beyond both masks." "Why?" His pause contained months of reflection. "Because I realized something important. I fell in love with parts of the real you that showed through both personas, the compassion behind Luna's philanthropy, the determination in the waitress's ambition. Those weren't performances." Hope bloomed in her chest. "Cautious but persistent. Would you like to discuss the designs in person?" "Yes," he answered. "But not as architect and clientas Jasper and Zara, whoever we truly are beneath our professional roles." As she ended the call, Zara realized they had reached a crucial turning point. The masks had been removed. The performances ended. Whatever came next would be built on a genuine foundation, rather than carefully constructed facades. Whether that foundation would support reconciliation or merely mutual respect remained uncertain, but for the first time since their relationship imploded, Zara felt true hope for possibility between them. Chapter 12. Unmasked Hearts. The Foundation headquarters' groundbreaking ceremony attracted media attention beyond the architectural world. Zara stood at the podium, the autumn sun warming her face as she addressed the gathered crowd. "This building represents more than physical space," she explained, gesturing toward the ceremonial shovels waiting to break ground. "It embodies our commitment to creating opportunity where barriers have traditionally existed, to seeing potential where others see only limitations." Her eyes found Jasper in the front row, his presence both professional and deeply personal. 6 months had passed since their relationship shattered. 3 since they'd begun cautiously rebuilding connection through his design of this very building. "I'm particularly grateful to our architect, Jasper Thornton, whose vision captured the essence of our mission, revealing structural beauty that has always existed but often goes unrecognized." Applause followed as Jasper joined her for the ceremonial first dig, their hands briefly touching on the golden shovel. The contact sent familiar electricity through her, amplified by months of careful distance. After the ceremony, They navigated separate conversations with donors and press, occasionally catching each other's gaze across the crowded reception. As attendees gradually departed, Zara found herself alone with Jasper beside the architectural model of the future building. "Congratulations," he offered sincerely. "This project will transform lives." "Our project," she corrected, studying his face. The months apart had added subtle lines around his eyes, a new maturity to his features. "Your design made it possible. I had excellent inspiration." His smile held warmth that had been absent during their professional interactions of recent months. "Would you like to see the site office?" she asked impulsively. "It's Keter. We could talk." The converted warehouse space offered privacy away from lingering photographers. Large windows overlooked the construction site, where workers were already preparing initial foundation work. "I watched your TED Talk last week," Jasper said as they settled into comfortable chairs, about architectural barriers and systemic exclusion. "I realized how much I've learned from you." His gaze held hers steadily. "How my own perspective was limited, despite my intentions. The design for this building would have been entirely different 6 months ago." "We've both changed," Zara acknowledged, her heartbeat quickening at the intensity of his focus. "Yes." He leaned forward, hands clasped between his knees. "I visited your childhood neighborhood again yesterday, spoke with your old math teacher, Mrs. Jenkins." Surprise registered on her face. "You've been investigating me?" "Not investigating," he corrected gently. "Learning, understanding the complete story, not just the fragments I was given, or the assumptions I made." "And what did Mrs. Jenkins tell you about me?" Zara asked, curious despite herself. Jasper smiled. "That you were brilliant but lonely. That after your mother died, you built walls around yourself that no one could penetrate. That when your father's invention succeeded, here you handled the transition to wealth with remarkable grace, but never fully trusted people again." The accuracy of this assessment made her eyes sting with unexpected tears. She always saw too much. "I also spoke with your father last week," Jasper continued, causing Zara's eyes to widen. "You did what?" "I asked for his perspective on something important," Jasper said, moving to the window, overlooking the construction site. "He helped me understand why you created Luna Sterling not just as an experiment, but as protection." "My father has become quite philosophical since his heart scare," Zara said, trying to mask her vulnerability with lightness. "He loves you very much," Jasper replied, turning back to face her, "in enough to tell me some uncomfortable truths about the men who pursued you. After your wealth became public, men who had previously rejected you, explicitly because of your skin color." Thunder rumbled outside, echoing their first meeting at the jazz club months ago. The parallel wasn't lost on either of them as Jasper moved closer, stopping directly before her chair. "These past months without you have been—" He hesitated, searching for the right word. "Clarifying. I've had time to separate my hurt pride from genuine injury, to examine my own masks and performances, and," Zara asked, barely breathing, "and I've realized something important." He knelt before her chair, bringing their faces level. "I fell in love with you 3 separate times. First with the waitress who challenged my thinking about urban spaces, then with the woman on the rooftop who kissed me like the world was ending, and finally with Luna Sterling, whose passion for equity and architecture matched my own, even before I knew she was you." A single tear escaped down Zara's cheek. "I've never stopped loving you," she confessed, "even when I hated myself for hurting you." Jasper reached up, gently brushing away her tear. "The deception hurt, yes, but what hurt more was believing I had lost the person who, in all her complicated variations, made me feel truly seen for the first time in my life." Rain began to fall outside, a soft pattering against the windows providing an intimate soundtrack to their reconciliation. "So where do we go from here?" Zara asked, the question that had haunted them for months. "Forward," Jasper said simply, with complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. "No more masks, no more performances, just us, learning who we truly are together. I'm not sure I know how to be completely unguarded anymore," she admitted. Vulnerability, replacing her usual confidence. "Then we'll learn together." He took her hands in his, thumbs tracing gentle circles on her skin. I don't want the perfect Luna Sterling or the struggling waitress. I want Zara Whitfield brilliant, complicated, sometimes frustrating, always extraordinary. And I don't want the Thornton heir or the celebrated architect, she replied, squeezing his hands. Just Jasper passionate, stubborn, occasionally judgmental, fundamentally good. The confession hung between them, raw and honest in ways their previous relationship had never fully achieved. When lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in stark clarity, Jasper leaned forward and kissed her. Unlike their desperate embrace months ago, this kiss held gentle promise forgiveness for past hurts, commitment to future honesty, acceptance of imperfect reality over perfect illusion. When they separated, foreheads still touching, Jasper smiled. We should probably address the photographers outside before they create tomorrow's headlines. Zara laughed, the sound free and unguarded. Let them speculate. We know the truth are truth. Hand in hand, they walked through the rain to their respective cars, witnessed by remaining media who captured the seemingly casual goodbye between architect and client. What cameras couldn't capture was Jasper's whispered promise. Tomorrow, dinner at my place. No performances. No interruptions. 6 months later, the foundation headquarters neared completion. On the rooftop garden, designed specifically to echo where they had shared their first kiss, Jasper and Zara stood alone at sunset, city lights beginning to twinkle below. It's perfect, Zara said, admiring how successfully his design had transformed vision into reality. Almost perfect, Jasper corrected, reaching into his pocket. When he knelt, producing a simple emerald ring that had once belonged to his grandmother, Zara's hands flew to her mouth. I've practiced elaborate speeches, he admitted with a smile. But they all felt like performances, so instead, I'll simply ask, Zara Whitfield, will you marry Minot because you're Luna Sterling or a Whitfield heiress, but because you're the woman I love, complicated history, trust issues, and all? Tears flowed freely as she nodded, extending trembling fingers for the ring. Yes, because you're the man I love, stubborn pride, architect obsessions, and all. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Jasper added, on one condition, our wedding announcement explicitly mentions your complexion not as something to be overcome, but as part of the beautiful woman I'm marrying. Making a point? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Absolutely, he confirmed. To all the men who denied marrying you due to complexion, their loss became my greatest gain. Their kiss sealed more than an engagement. It represented triumph over prejudice, forgiveness of deception, and the power of seeing beyond masks to the authentic person beneath flawed, complex, and perfectly real. 3 weeks later, the headline read exactly as they'd written it together. Architect Jasper Thornton, to Wednesday. Zara Whitfield, the most beautiful woman I've ever known. Inside and out. The accompanying photo showed them laughing together, her dark skin radiant against his fair complexion, their joined hands prominently displaying both her engagement ring and their intertwined futures. The rich girl in town had finally found the one man who loved her for herself, not despite her complexion, but including every authentic aspect of who she truly was.